righty, welcome back to HPP, the podcast that talks with tomorrow's hoop stars. I am Rich Harris, and thank you for joining us again. And ironically, we don't have a star to talk to for this show because the Big 12 shunned us. So we had a lot of bites, but a lot of nibbles. Kansas State's always been a friend of the show, BYU, but weren't able to work something out this close to the start of the season. So we hope to have a BYU player, Kansas State player, and some more Big 12 players on the show shortly. However, we do have a special guest today, a former Big 12 player, and that's center Brandon Garrison, who played very well for Oklahoma State last year at center. And now he's moved on to Kentucky and figures to be a key part of that deep rotation they have of transfer players. So exciting. Brandon was a former high 4-star. So we'll be talking to him today and really appreciate him stepping in for us. And we also have our pair of rookie standouts. They're both in the running for Rookie of the Year, the HPP Rookie of the Year. That's Josh Tischler, IU's own, and Ohio State's own Joey Bardak. So actually, we're in the midst of tip-off day, and Josh just told me that Robbie Avila, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, turned an ankle and had to leave the game today versus Santa Clara, which was a great matchup between two teams that we have as bubble teams. And Joey, your alma mater tonight takes on Texas in Las Vegas. We'll even though we haven't talked about Texas yet, I'm going to get your picks on this game. I like Texas in a close one on a neutral court.
I mean, I don't want to sound biased, but I'm pulling for my Buckeyes. I think
That sounds biased.
This one. It might. But once Michi and Bruce step onto the court and they start shining, the whole world will see.
Michi, God, stop putting your hopes on Michi. He's going to lose you as many games as he wins you. What are your thoughts, Josh?
I mean, I think it's me personally. I think the Longhorns are going to win tonight. But I do think if the Buckeyes, I think it's going to be a very close game. It's going to be a great game. You know, if they step up defensively, which I know they can very much, I think the Buckeyes really have a good shot tonight.
Yeah. I think Ohio State, at least traditionally, has been the better defensive club. They also have the size advantage. One weakness on Texas that I see is Caden Shedrick, who's an injury-prone guy, is their only big. If he gets some foul trouble, or God forbid he gets hurt, I don't want that to happen, obviously. I like Caden Shedrick. But, something like that happens, Ohio State should be able to crush them on the inside. But Trey Johnson, whoo. Tune in to, well, folks, by the time you hear this, the game will be over. But I'm telling you right now, Trey Johnson is a problem. Top five NBA prospect. All right, so let's move on to the Big 12. And we'll start by kind of reviewing what's been going on there. First of all, realignment. Arizona State, Colorado, Utah, all join the conference. At the same time, the conference loses two teams, and that is Oklahoma and Texas. Both move on to the SEC. Coaching changes at BYU. Kevin Young, coming from the Phoenix Suns, replaces Mark Pope, who left for Kentucky. At Oklahoma State, Steve Lutz from Western Kentucky, replaces Mike Boynton, who I thought kind of got a raw deal at Oklahoma State. But that's beside the point. He's no longer there. At West Virginia, Darren DeVries comes in from Drake. And interestingly enough, about the only significant Drake player, or maybe the only player to come over from Drake with him, was his son. I thought that was interesting. And he replaces Josh Eilert, who was the interim last year. So the regular season champ last year was Houston. They kind of cruised to that. I think they won by a couple of games, or at least, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd have to look. But Iowa State is the team that won the auto bid in the tournament as Houston started to get banged up toward the end of last season. Houston made the NCAA as an at-large as a 1. Baylor made it as a 3. Kansas a 4. Kansas was also banged up going into the tournament. BYU a 6. Texas Tech a 6. Texas a 7. TCU a 9. And then if you throw in Arizona, who was a 2, and Colorado, who was a 10 from the Pac-12, you had a total of 10 teams from this conference in the NCAAs last year. Actually, I should say 9 teams because Texas has moved on to the SEC. So the way the conference is constructed this year, 9 of those teams made the NCAA tournament last year. Conference awards. Jamal Shad was the player of the year and the defensive player of the year. Hunter Dickinson was the newcomer of the year and looking like the player of the year for at least the first half of the season. And Jacoby Walter was the rookie of the year, and he is now playing with Toronto, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, he's Toronto.
Yeah. All righty. So we'll start at the top. And again, as always, I kind of order these I order in the way I expect them to finish. And we'll start off with Kansas. When we were doing the SEC show, I couldn't believe Kansas was number 1 again. It just seems like every year they vote Kansas number 1. And every year I'm always saying, Kansas doesn't have enough depth. And I'll be damned if last year with Kevin McCullough and then Hunter Dickinson also was a little lame. What happened? They got upset in the tournament in a big way. Why? Because they had no depth. And you might be able to make the same argument about this team, but it looks a little deeper than last year's version. So McCullough is went on to the pros. Johnny Furphy also went on the pros. They're the 2 big losses from last season. Dickinson returns. KJ Adams returns. Jawan Harris returns. They are the main returners. In the portal, Kansas did a really nice job of bringing in wings and guards. In AJ Storr, he's a bucket from Wisconsin. Rylan Griffin, a great 3-and-D guy from Alabama. Zeke Mayo, a really highly productive combo guard from South Dakota State. Shaquille Moore, kind of a score-first point guard from Mississippi State, little guy. David Coit, also a little guy from Northern Illinois, could fill it up. And in terms of freshmen, they bring in 2 top 40 guys. Flory Badunga, a center who was number 16 in the composite rankings, and Rakis Passmore, a wing, number 40 in the composites. So I will start with you, Joey. What do you make of this Kansas team?
Well, I mean, it's pretty undisputable. They're easily one of the best teams in the nation. All 3 of us had them winning the Big 12. McCullough and Furphy. Sorry for the spoiler.
Yeah, skip to the end. You already know.
But McCullough and Furphy are sizable losses, but they bring back arguably the best player in the Big 12, Hunter Dickinson, solid veteran defensive forward KJ Adams, great facilitator in Jawan Harris. All the puzzle pieces came together. Harris can facilitate. You have Storr, Griffin, and Mayo, great wings, guards that are able to score at a very high clip, great 3-point shooters. KJ Adams to play the 4, Dickinson on the 5, and Jamari McDowell. That's the name I want you guys to look out for. Coming off the bench, he is an absolute spark plug.
All right. Now, they did lose Elmarco Jackson, who was a 4 or 5-star last year, out for the season. But with the guys they brought in, they got plenty of guys to play in the backcourt. So that's not a problem. The one thing, if Dickinson gets hurt, you're relying on the 5-star freshman or maybe Zach Clements, who's been hanging around forever waiting for his turn. KJ Adams gets hurt. I don't know, where do they go with that? They're going to have to play small ball. Josh, what do you make of this team?
Me personally, I agree with Joey. I think this is the number 1, undisputably the number 1 team in the country. I think they bring in a top 5 transfer in AJ Storr. That dude can shoot the lights out. Great defender. I watched him my years at watching St. John's basketball. This dude can really hoop for sure. Zeke Mayo, another great combo guard, really great shooter, can really facilitate. And I will say I was watching that scrimmage against Arkansas, and it doesn't give justice what Rickisi Passmore can do in the game. This dude is an absolute dog. 11 points, 6 boards. He can really run the floor. A great rebounder for his size. He's about 6'2", 6'3". He kind of really gives off that Josh Hart vibe, glue guy. And I think he could stay on the floor more than anticipated for the season.
He's only 6'3".
Yeah, and he's just like, the ball just stuck right to him. He's like a magnet to that ball, which is
okay.
It was great to see.
I got him listed at 6'5", so but still. But do you agree with me though? If something happens to Dickinson or KJ Adams, this team could be in trouble.
I agree. I think it's like arguably, this Hunter Dickinson, National Player of the Year candidate. You bring in a guy, 5-star center in Florida Badunga. He's a beast on the boards, can really stretch the floor. I think he's a better rim protector than Hunter Dickinson can be. I think he's faster.
Yeah,
I think he's faster than Hunter. I think there'll be times where you'll need to take Hunter off the floor because defensive woes. And I think Badunga can really be a good replacement if Hunter goes down, if need be.
Right. Okay. I agree that they're, a top 5 team, top 10 at worst, and a Final Four candidate, no doubt. All right, so we'll move on to Iowa State, who always seems to get more. The sum of the parts seems to be greater than the individual pieces. TJ Otzelberger brings back a good amount of his team that I believe was an Elite 8 team last year. And they do lose Trey King, Robert, who was a forward for them, Robert Jones, and Hassan Ward, both centers that kind of shared time almost equally. Those were the 3 pieces that actually played significant minutes for this club that are gone. I don't think any of those guys are irreplaceable. And they probably bring back their 2 to 3 best players in Keyshawn Gilbert, Tamin Lipsey, and Milan Mosilovic, who as a freshman came in highly touted, he played well, but not exceptional. I expect him to take a significant jump this year and possibly be an all-conference type player. They also bring back Curtis Jones, who was a valuable piece, or an offensive spark plug off the bench, or could even start for this team. And in the portal, their biggest prize was Joshua Jefferson, high energy, defensive type of guy, athletic. Some people called him the poor man's Anton Watson of the West Coast Conference, those who are familiar with the St. Mary's Gonzaga rivalry. So that kind of gives you a sense that, Joshua is more defensive oriented, more a glue guy, but a really valuable glue guy. That St. Mary's team did not play the same when he went down last year. And, that's why we saw St. Mary's so high and then kind of just play erratic basketball for the rest of the season. Those are the big additions. The guys they're bringing in to replace Jones and Ward at center are Deshaun Jackson from Charlotte and Brandon Chatfield from Seattle. I think those guys are a downgrade from what they had last year. They also bring in Nate Hasse from Northern Iowa, a good shooter, good wing player. Nobody overly significant in terms of freshmen. They have one top 100 guy who I'm not going to it's a Greek name and I'm just not going there, folks. But trust me, they do have one top 100 guy at shooting guard. And Joyous and Drustasatis. All right, I did try.
Citus? Oh.
Yeah, and Citus. Yeah, it's a mouthful. All right, so I'm going to start with you, Josh. What do you think of Cyclones?
They're bringing back, most of their core. I think top 3 players from last year, possibly. I think they've got one of the best backcourts in the game in Keyshawn Gilbert and Tamin Lipsey. I think Lipsy can really, I thought he was phenomenal last year. I think he'd really make a jump and be possibly, up for, the best point guard in the nation for sure. I think this team, has a chance of, doing more than what they can. I think this team's Final Four caliber for sure. I think the question is, it's the depth for me, the bench. I see, great starting five. I think Curtis Jones is a great player. I'm looking down this list and, I can't really see another, maybe a 7 or an 8 guy that can really, go out and, maybe get a bucket for this team. So I think that's the big question for as, the season goes on for Iowa State. But I think this team has Final Four aspirations for sure.
Yeah. I'm concerned about the center position because, as I said, Ward was a really good shot blocker. Jones was just kind of a high energy guy, and a big body. These other two guys, I got to see them do it at this level, and I have my doubts. Joey, what you have any thoughts on Iowa State?
Yeah, Rich, I like what you said earlier, how Iowa State's more of a sum of the parts versus individual pieces. I remember last year when they were ranked number 2, I looked at this roster and I see their top 2 scorers averaging 12 points per game. No one else really averaging over 10. And I was kind of like, how is this team so good? Surely they're going to flop in the tournament, but they just, Otzelberger just has a great culture. They play stifling defense. They don't score necessarily in bunches, but they're going to prevent the other team from doing so even more. Taman Lipsy and Keyshawn Gilbert are their 2 star guards, and yet they're also each averaging over 2.2 steals a game, which is phenomenal. Yeah. Lipsy, I think I agree with Josh. I think he's poised for another step. He had a big step from his freshman to sophomore year, going from 7 points to about 12 or 13. I think he could reach another level, and I think if they're playing defensively the way they were playing last year with that same culture, even with the loss of the center position, I think they could still be a Elite 8, maybe even Final Four team.
Yep, I agree. Gilbert, to me, but I thought was the most impressive player for this team in the Big 12 tournament and the NCAA tournament. He really took his game to another level, and he too could take a big jump. So they got their 3 top returners all could take some significant jumps this year. And one piece that we didn't talk about, I talked a lot about the problems the team might have at center. Another solution is potentially JT Rock, a redshirt freshman, didn't play last year. This kid is huge, 7'1", 260, and he's only 18 years old. So he's a former top 100 guy. Maybe he emerges to give this team, 20 minutes a game and turns out to be a really productive, starter backup for them at center. So they have 3 options. I don't expect anybody to really stand out at that position, but should be the trio should be serviceable enough to still make this one of the best teams in the Big 12 and the country for that matter. So now we move on to Houston, who arguably some people probably have as the number 1 or number 2 team in this conference. And I as we go down the list, if I have one team ahead of the other, it probably means it's pretty close. And I would say it's pretty close. Houston, man, beside losing Shed, which is a big loss, they really bring back everybody of significance, including L.J. Cryer, Joanne Roberts, Emmanuel Sharp, Javier Francis, Joseph Tugler, Terrence Arsenault, who missed most of last season with an injury, is back in a highly athletic wing with pro potential, assuming he can recover from that Achilles injury. But last I heard, he's ready to go for the season. They did suffer one injury. Jacob McFarland, center, who was a top 100 recruit for them last year, sat out redshirted. He is going to miss probably at least 6 weeks with a fractured leg. So that kind of hurts a team that doesn't really have a true center. He was closest thing they probably had. But certainly with Roberts, Francis, those guys have done a really good job of playing undersized centers. So yeah, McFarland didn't contribute to this team at all last year. So coming in to replace Shed is Milos Uzan from Oklahoma. He was actually, showing up on draft boards this time last year, but had a disappointing season after a really nice freshman season. I think a lot of people expected him to take the next jump, and he did anything but. So it'd be interesting to see how he fits in. I don't expect him to be Jamal Shed, but yeah, certainly an adequate guy. Other guys to potential replacement for Shed is Malik Wilson, who saw some time toward even in the NCAA tournament because Houston had some players banged up. And then they bring in 2 top 100 recruits in Chase McCarty and Mercy Miller. Both of them are kind of like swingmen. McCarty's more of a small forward. Mercy Miller's more of a shooting guard. So again, I'll start with you, Josh. What do you make of the Cougars?
I mean, I always love watching Houston play basketball. I think they're such a fun, defensive team. Always, I think Kelvin Sampson has really done a great job this basketball program. Losing a guy like Jamal Shed to the league. I mean, it's rough. It's a hard pill to swallow. I think a lot of guys are going to need to step up for this team, and one of those guys who I think who I love to watch play is Emmanuel Sharp. That dude can really shoot the ball really well. He can really get a good shot going. I'm seeing 36% from 3 last year. If he can really maybe get him to that 40% in his junior year, that can really boost up Houston's offense. I think that's the main thing for me. It's, who's going to fill in that role of Jamal Shed. And if someone can boost up like Emmanuel Sharp, Miles Uzan, LJ Cryer can really do that for them, this team's very dangerous.
Yeah. What are you thinking, Joey?
I agree with Josh. I love this Cougars team. To me, watching them defensively is like art. They have Xavier Francis, Joseph Tugler, Juwan Roberts, 3 bigs specifically that just block shots like I've never seen, rotate like guys half their size. Just that entire team, they double team the entire game. They don't get tired. They rotate. They just play phenomenal defense. They're always moving, always active. And what I love that Kelvin Sampson's done is it seems like he's kind of created an archetype of a player, and each guy that comes in kind of seems to fill that archetype. Like when I watch Juwan Roberts and Xavier Francis play, I see a lot of Jarris Walker. When I watch LJ Cryer and Sharp, I see a good amount of Jamal Shed, even a little bit of Marcus Sasser offensively. And it's when you have that kind of next man up mentality, losing key players hurts less because you're just bringing in guys that are able to fill that role. And I think Cryer and Sharp are going to be just fine filling Shed's role.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Shed's offense. He wasn't he wasn't the greatest shooter. He wasn't the greatest scorer. He scored a lot of points because he took a lot of shots for this team. I think his leadership and his energy are going to be the things, and defense are going to be the things that could be missed. Here's the positive thing for Houston fans. There is untapped potential in Uzan, the transfer. Sharp, as Josh said. Arsenault, as I said, and Tugler, as Joey said. All these guys have untapped potential. So, if 1 or 2 of them takes off, this team should be right back where it was, I think. One thing I will say about Sharp, by the way, watch his shot. He had the funkiest shot.
He's got a weird shot, yeah.
Yeah, and if he straightens that out, some guys never straighten it out, but I think he could make that jump to 40% if he straightens it out. All right, we'll move on to Arizona. I'm not quite sure what to make of this team. And again, I don't know if I commented with you guys, but I've made comments before. I don't know what it is with Tommy Lloyd and his. Maybe it's coming from Gonzaga because Gonzaga likes to do the same thing, but he collects bigs. Like we would collect. I don't know what, whatever people collect these days. And what's funny is every year he loses 1, 2. I think this year he lost 3 bigs in the portal because they don't like sitting around forever waiting to play. So what's he do? He loads up with a bunch of more bigs. And so really, I mean, the best players on this team are the returning guards. By far are the best players on this team. But there's nobody really behind them because all he did was collect bigs. But we'll get into that a little more. So who left from last year's team? 4 key players, 4 starters in Omar Ballo, Pella Larson, Keyshawn Johnson, and Keelan Boswell. I don't know if Larson started the whole season, but he might as well. He played starters minutes. So who comes back? Well, player of the year in the Pac-12, Caleb Love. KJ Lewis, who had a great freshman season last year. Jaden Bradley, who really came on, especially second half of last season after struggling at Alabama. He was a former very high recruit. Monte Krivas is back. I believe he got hurt toward the end of last season. He was, backing up Ballo. Also, Henry Visar, who missed most of last season, who's more of a stretch 5 compared to Krivas, who's more of a traditional 5. He's there. So I'm not even sure who's going to start between the two. Maybe neither because of these other bigs I'm going to mention. So in the portal, they bring in Trey Townsend. And if anybody watched the NCAAs, watched Oakland beat Kentucky, Trey Townsend was the star on that Oakland team. He's going to try to take up his game to another level. He was a very undersized 5. So, but he does have some talent to maybe play. He certainly could play the 4 because I think he has enough of a jump shot to be able to do that. They also bring in Toby Awaka, who's a huge human being in terms of girth and muscle from Tennessee. He's like a 6'8" center, but certainly with his girth can play that position. They bring in Anthony Delarusso, a very productive player, wing from Campbell, who's going to be needed on this team that really lacks guards behind the 3 starters that I mentioned at the top. In terms of freshmen, they bring in Carter Bryant, a power forward, another big at number 24. And they also bring in center Emmanuel Sharp, another big. And they're thinking about redshirting him because, as I said, they have Krivas, they have Visar, they have Awaka, all could play center. And Trey Townsend has played center his whole career at Oakland. So, yeah, there you go. You got 4 centers on the roster. So I spent a lot of time with them, but it's an unusual roster construction again for Arizona. Josh, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm kind of like, I've been on the fence with this team for a bit, losing 4 of your 5 stars, it's hard. But honestly, I really like what Tommy Lloyd did in the transfer portal. I love Trey Townsend. I thought he was phenomenal in the tournament. I thought he was a great player for Oakland. I think he can really fit, and kind of do that Keyshawn Johnson role. I can see that for sure. And even, I think the recruiting class as well was phenomenal. I think I was watching Carter Bryant. That dude can really shoot the ball really well for a power forward. 3-level scorer. I see a lot of Ryan Dunn in him. If he can, Ryan Dunn made a great leap into the NBA. I could see that for sure for Carter and can make an instant impact for this Arizona offense. The one question that I do have for this, this team, moving over from the Pac-12, how they can work defensively on this squad. I think they have enough offensive power. KJ Lewis, Caleb Love, these guys have been playing. KJ Lewis, the sophomore now, I think he can make a big leap. Caleb Love has been in the league for quite a while, but I think this team, if they can do well defensively, they can really hold their own in the Big 12.
Joey?
Rich, I'm with you on this one. I think that a lot of what made Arizona so good last year was their really good guard play. Larson and Boswell were both great during the season, but I remember watching during March Madness and being a little disappointed because Arizona really struggled from beyond the arc. And I remember thinking, knowing that these guys were probably gonna leave, that they need to bring in more shooting into the coming season. And I'm not so sure that they did that. I think Bradley definitely stepped up towards the second half of the season. He looked really good. Love, he's going to get you points, but it's just whether or not it's going to be efficient. Probably not, given the way the last 2 seasons have gone.
No, he's never been efficient. He's never really been
Yeah.
efficient. I mean, last year was his best year, and he's certainly not a knockdown three-point shooter. There's nobody on this team that's a knockdown three-point shooter. So they could run into the same problems again.
Exactly, and that's my fear. I think if Townsend we've seen him shoot a little bit. If he can maybe become more of a stretch forward, play more on the perimeter, shoot more, because they have so much depth down low, as you've said, then maybe that'll work. If Lewis takes a big step, like Josh said, but I mean, I still think this team is going to finish 4th or 5th in the Big 10 or in the Big 12. I think they'll still be a solid tournament team, but I definitely have my fears with them.
Well, the problem is they haven't even been a solid tournament team. You know, they roll in every year, you know, as a top 10 team, and then they lose first or second round. I have a feeling they might be headed to the same direction. You know, somebody's going to have to, you know, Pelle Larsson was the one player on this team that last year that could really shoot. But you know what? When the chips were down, when it was a big game, I don't know if it was coaching or I don't know if it was him, but you could count on it like clockwork. If a big game's coming, count on Pelle Larsson disappearing. You know, he just goes MIA. So yeah, I'm a little suspect about this team, but in terms of overall talent and those guards, you know, really athletic, you know, there's a lot of potential there, but man, somebody's going to have to put the ball in the basket, you know, and Caleb loves that, you know, I shouldn't say that. I mean, that one Final 4-year run, he came up pretty clutch, but for most of his career, I don't know. He's kind of spotty. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, he's not. I feel like he's always been kind of like an inefficient player. I mean, there'll be nights where he'll give you, 25 or whatever, but then there'll be other nights he's got 7 points, 3 for 15. So I think also
including their loss in the NCAA tournament.
Sure, exactly. Yeah, and that's I think it's really gonna show. I don't know.
You know, what's funny is, you know, there's all this talk for, you know, the last couple of years about the Caleb Love, RJ Davis rivalry over a girl and all this stuff. And they were heading for a clash in the NCAA tournament. And both of them threw up a big egg, you know, before they could actually meet in the tournament. Yeah. So there's that story. All right, the next team we're going to talk about might surprise some people, the order I have them in, especially ahead of Baylor. And as I said, you know, as we move down the list, you know, these teams could easily move up a couple of slots, move down a couple of slots. But I really like way Cincinnati is lining up defensively and athletically. And the big players they lost from last season were Victor Lankinen, who a center went to Clemson. He got hurt, I believe, toward the end of last season, so he wasn't available down the stretch. And also shooting guard John Newman, who was not a bad, he was a good 3-and-D guy. And he's moved on to play in Europe. So who they bring back is not, these guys are not household names, but they are, they may be soon. And that's including small forward Daniel Skillings, a pro prospect at small forward, Aziz Bandego, a really good shot blocker, who shared time with Lankinen last year, Jizzle James, Edgar and James' son, who's really an aggressive physical rim attacker, needs a jump shot. They also bring back Simos Lukosius or Lukosius, a wing who came over from the Big East, good shooter. Day Thomas was a nice fill-in piece last year for them. Actually, he started a lot ahead of, I think he started all season ahead of Jizzle James. I think that might turn around this year, especially because Day is a little banged up to start the season. Also, CJ Frederick was banged up a lot last year. He's a great shooter, came over from Iowa. And they have a couple high recruits that really didn't see much playing time at all last year, and forward Josh Reed and wing Ravion Griffith, excuse me. And then in the portal, they bring in Dylan Mitchell, who's one of my favorite college players. This guy is a supreme athlete, excellent defender, again, another guy that needs a jump shot. And that's a theme we're going to see here repeated with Cincinnati. That's the one problem they do have is most of their good shooters are really kind of like bench players, role players. Unless somebody turns it around like Skillings or Mitchell or James. They also bring in Connor Hickman, a shooting guard, another good shooter from Bradley, and Artin Page, a center from USC. Didn't get a lot of playing time over there, but a former high recruit. They also bring in power forward Tyler Betsy, number 47 in the composite rankings. They also bring in another power forward in Tyler McKinley, number 71 in the composite, but he's already out for the season due to injury. So I will start with you again, Josh. By the way, the reason why I'm starting with one person or the other is each guy was assigned to focus on half the team. So I'm starting with the person who was assigned that team. So, Josh, what do you make of Cincinnati?
I like this team a lot. I believe they're in the top 25 AP poll. Bringing back a guy like Daniel Skillings Jr., who had a solid season, last year. But I think if he can really get those shooting splits up, can really boost the Cincinnati offense. Simos Lukosius was a great wing for Butler. He played really well last year too. Jizzle James Jr. also a great facilitator, and I love what they did in the transfer portal. I think Dale Mitchell is an absolute dog, a freak of an athlete. I think he's a great player. Connor Hickman, I think he's also a phenomenal shooter. He was great at the MVC for Bradley. I think he could really have a good spark plug for Cincinnati. And I think they did pretty solid too in the recruiting aspect. I think Tyler Betsy was a great get for them. I think has a chance to be a great shot creator for Cincinnati. And I just like to point this out. I saw CJ Frederick Jr.'s back, and I think that dude, unfortunately, injuries, it happened. I think he's been in college for maybe 8-9 years now or something ridiculous. But I think this team overall can do really solid this season. I think now in the Big 12, they can really pull themselves for sure. I think they can make some noise in the tournament as well.
Yeah. Joey?
Rich, it's funny you're talking about the shooting because that was my number one note. 4 out of the 5 projected starters shot under 28% last year. So this team is obviously fantastic defensively, but the shooting is what I'm worried about. And I was kind of going back and forth in my head because they are bringing back a lot of returners. They have 4 out of their 5 starters. So I was kind of thinking if they're bringing back all these guys and they were able to make it into the tournament last year, then maybe they'll do it. And I agree, Dylan Mitchell is a phenomenal addition. He's been great. Very athletic, a lot of talent, but I think the Big 12 is too much competition. I think when push comes to shove, Cincinnati's lack of shooting is really gonna bite them. I think that if some of the guys can get their shooting up, which I don't think that's impossible, for Skillings, get a little more consistent, Jizzle James to maybe develop a little bit of a shot, Mitchell even, hopefully if he can. But if they can't get their shooting up, that's a big concern I have with this team.
Noted. And I agree, but if you compare this team to last year, assuming that all these guys stay healthy, they're basically adding 2 shooters in Hickman and Frederick, who we know can knock it down. Maybe even Betsy can knock it down too, but he's a power forward, so I'm not too counting on that. But then, as you said, if Skillings, Mitchell, or James, 3 pro prospects because of their athleticism, their defensive skills, and in the case of James, his ability to attack the rim, if those guys got to add a jump shot if they want to be making millions at the next level, so they got to be working on that. So I think there's a lot of this team has the potential to be better than last year. And I will tell you what, it was kind of really bunched up in the middle of the pack last year. You had Houston and you had Iowa State, and you kind of had a bunch of teams that were all bunched up. And every week, Cincinnati would just lose this game by 3 points, this game by 5 points, this game by 1 point. They were in it every night. The wins just didn't fall their way. I think that's going to be different this year. I think with a little more shooting and still the same defensive presence, if not better with Mitchell, this team will, take the next step. All right. we'll move on to Kansas State, and they don't bring back a lot. They lost Tyler Perry, their point guard, moved on to the pros. Arthur Kaluma went to Texas. Cam Carter went to LSU. They were the big losses. They do bring back Malachi, or is it? It's Malachi, right? Rich, who is a extreme. I may not be able to pronounce his first name, but I know this guy is a athlete, and the fans just are dying to see this guy play. Didn't play a ton last year, but this kid has pro potential based on his athleticism. And also David Gusan, power forward, maybe a center, but he's more of a role player. But in the portal, they brought in a lot of talent, including Coleman Hawkins, the do-everything power forward from Illinois, Ogana Unyenso, the shot-blocking machine from Kentucky, Doug McDaniel, the point guard at Michigan, had some issues with grades last year, Brandon Housen, who's a knockdown shooter from deep, Anchor, who was one of the anchors from that really good Sanford team last year that almost beat Kansas. CJ Jones is a big point guard coming in from Illinois, Chicago. Is still pretty young, I think. I think he's only a junior. Bay Fall was a 5-star last year, didn't play for Arkansas. He could actually maybe start for this team if Inyenso for some reason would fail, and they'd have 2 7-footers, top-notch 7-footers there. So a bunch of talent coming in. The one player they brought in as a freshman is combo guard David Castillo at number 54 in the composite. So there's a lot of pieces to put together here, but the talent certainly seems to be there. Wouldn't you say, Joey?
Yeah, I really like this team. They did take a big hit, losing Perry, Kaluma, and Carter, who were probably their 3 best players last year. I'm normally hesitant to fully embrace teams that kind of completely rebuild themselves in the portal or the recruiting class, but I think a team like USC kind of just hit the panic button and just added as much talent as possible. Whereas I feel like Jerome Tang and Kansas State were really purposeful with how they constructed this team in the transfer portal. Hawkins, you said, the do-it-all power forward. You got the shot blocker in Yenso. You have the knockdown 3-and-D shooter in Housen. So you have like the role player pieces, which I think is really important. I think the question for this team is the scoring. Kansas State, in recent memory, they've always had a really good point guard. They had Perry, they had Marquise Noel. I think McDaniel can fill that role, and he can give them, the 16 a night he was giving Michigan, and I think the 4 assists or so. And Achor can help step up with the scoring like he did in Samford. And I think this team can be really good. I really like McDaniel. I think he's a fantastic shot. I think that a lot of this team's success comes down to how good of a scorer and how good of a passer, really how much he can carry the offensive burden, because I think that defensively and, creating space, all the little things, I think they're good.
Yeah. What do you think of Josh?
Yeah, I'm on the same boat with you guys. I think this team definitely has the talent. It's once again, it's a brand new team for Jerome Tang. You're losing a bunch of guys. I think losing Arthur Kaluma was a big loss for them. But I think bringing in Coleman Hawkins, that's a glue guy right there. He does staff. He does everything in the stat sheet. Everything. Brendan Housen was a great shooter at Villanova. I think he can, if you put him in the starting lineup, 20, 25 minutes. He can get you 10 points, couple threes. And Doug McDaniel, I think what he did at Michigan was great. Give him 15, 16 a night. And he's just like, they got to do all the little things right. And I think if this team can really do that thing, work together as a team, be cohesive, they'll do well in the Big 12.
I'm telling you, it's going to be hard to score on them on the inside. I mean, Hawkins averages
2 big guys.
4 big guys. I mean, Hawkins averages, well over 1 block a game, and Yenso's capable of averaging over 3. Fall, should be able to, as a reserve role, average at least 1 a game, and Anchor, or Core, excuse me, averaged close to 2 a game and only 22 minutes a game last year. The question is really the 4 guys I mentioned, or at least 3 of the 4. Hawkins, Yenso, and Akor might be the three best players on this team. Can you play them all together? Akor, maybe. Hawkins has some ball handling ability. He's certainly a really good passing big. It'd be a huge team. And they don't really have anybody proven behind McDaniel, and the shooting guards, Housen has never been a starter yet. So yeah, I'm a little worried about the guard spot here, but that's about it. But I still think that they should be definitely in the upper half of the Big 12, and that's going to be good enough to get into the NCAA tournament. Now we move on to a team that lost three really, really good players. Ray J. Dennis, point guard, all-conference player, moves on to the pros. Jacoby Walter, one of the best freshmen in the country last year, moves on to the pros. Yusif Misi, one of the best defenders in college basketball last year, a shot blocker too, moves on to the pros. They also lose Jalen Bridges, who was kind of a glue guy for this team, could do a little bit of everything, moves on to the pros. So that's 4 starters right there. They do bring back Jaden Nunn, and they bring back Langston Love, both guards, both shooting guards, wings, whatever you want to call them. And Love has had a ton of injury problems over his career, and even started this preseason not completely healthy. But the last I heard, he is healthy now. He was a former high recruit, top 100 guy. So their backcourt, at least in terms of shooting guards and wings, should be fine. They also bring back Joshua Uwanyana, who basically took over as he shared minutes with Misi last year, so he proved to be serviceable, let's say. Now in the portal, they bring in Norchad Omir, stat stuffing machine. He improved his game last year to include a jump shot. He's an undersized power forward, but very, very strong and athletic. So he's a rebounding machine, but also can knock down threes. And he's tough to stop on the inside. Jeremy Roach has been a steady point guard for Duke for a number of years. And he comes over for his final season at Baylor, and he'll take over at the point for Ray J. Dennis. Jalen Celestine, a wing from California, solid player. Figure he's going to be a bench piece. Then their prize is VJ Edgecombe, a small forward, top 5 pick in this probably going to be a top 5 pick in this draft. And by the way, I misspoke at the top of the show. I said that Trey Johnson was in this conference. Or no, I didn't say he was in this conference, but I did say he was going to be a problem.
He's top 5 player, yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely, he too is a top 5 player. Yeah, they both are. But Edgecombe is from, forget what country.
Yeah, I think he's from the Bahamas.
He's from the Bahamas. But where he really impressed me was in the Olympic qualifiers.
Yeah.
This guy was in the Olympic qualifiers for Spain. All right. Averaged 27 and a half minutes per game, put up 16, almost 17 points per game. Shot 57% from the field, 39 from 3, 81 from the free throw line, almost 6 rebounds a game, almost 4 assists, 2 steals, and a half a block per game. So this is a kid who's played some on the international level already, and can basically do it all. They also bring in another 5-star in Rob Wright at point guard. So if Roach, that's a nice backup piece to develop behind Roach, and probably will play significant minutes on a team that doesn't have a ton of depth. They also bring in a 4-star in Jason Asamoah, a small forward at number 52 in the composite. So not a ton of depth on this team, but boy, the starting 5 that they could put out there, or even the starting 6, really, really looks fierce. What do you think, Josh?
I'm very high on this team, Rich. I think this team has it all to win the national championship. I absolutely love DJ Edgecombe. I think this dude is an absolute monster. In the qualifiers, he was amazing for them and for the Bahamas. Norchad Omier was a great player for UMiami. He's really can, do everything for the team. And bringing in a guy like Jeremy Roach, he was doing everything for Duke as well. It's like it was huge for them. Rob Wright III played at Montverde Academy with all those big guys, Cooper Flagg, Asai Newell, and he was really the big facilitator for this team. And, I think it's really going to come down to like those three players, Roach, Omier, and Edgecombe for this team. I think the starting five has great aspirations. I think this starting five could be the best in the Big 12 with Kansas and Houston. And I think I do agree with the aspect, depth could be a question for this Baylor team. So that's really going to I think that's going to be the make or break it for this team is the depth and if they can make it through to the Final Four.
Yeah. I think if something, for example, would happen to Omier, they might find themselves that would hurt a lot, and probably take away national title hopes. They'd probably still be good because of all the talent that they have at the wings and guards. But they just don't have a lot of depth at the big positions. Joey?
No.
I'm with Josh on this one, though. I have them going to the Final Four. Depth could be an issue. But I think the talent will overcome. I have loved Jeremy Roach since his sophomore year at Duke. I think he's a great shooter, great passer, solid defender, averaging over 1.1 steals a game. And it's been frustrating seeing him at Duke because they've had so many great players, so many great guards. I feel like he hasn't really been able to shine. But I think now here at Baylor, Scott Drew's going to give him the keys, and I think he could be taking this 13, 14 a game to maybe like 17 or 18, because I think his scoring potential is really there. It's just Duke has so many guys. I'm so excited to watch him run the two-man game with Norchad Omier. Those two, I think, are going to fit seamlessly with one another. I'm very excited to see them play. I did not expect Omier to add a shot to his game. I was watching highlights and just watching him beast down low and block shots and get rebounds. And then I saw him shooting threes, and I was like, whoa, since when could he do that? He's going to be unstoppable. Him and Roach are going to play great together. Edgecombe has all the potential in the world. And even if those three somehow, if they're all three cold, Jaden Nunn, I think, is a great guy that can step up. Baylor always has solid combo guards. And I think that Baylor.
Love as well, if he's healthy.
Absolutely. I think Baylor has enough talent to overcome the issue of depth.
Right. All right. Yeah. We'll move on to BYU. This team also, has a lot of potential. And even though they lost a fair amount of talent, the nice thing was last year partially because of injuries, but partially just because of the style that they used. They used a lot of guys. So nobody was really a huge loss for them. They lose Big 12 sixth man of the year, Jackson Robinson. They lose small forward Spencer Johnson, Noah Waterman, power forward, went on to Louisville, and Ali Khalifa went on to Louisville. Three of those four guys could shoot. And that's what BYU did last year. They really, really shot the ball. But they also had some bigs, especially Fus Traore, who could score in the post. And he is back. So he is an undersized center. Huge guy, strong guy. Very similar in build to like great Azabor. But not as nearly versatile offensively. They also bring back Dallin Hall, point guard, who had a really good freshman season, and he's expected to continue to grow. Richie Saunders, a wing, just like a lot of these BYU guys can knock it down from deep. And Trevor Nell, who had his nights where he'd put up like 20, 25 a game from deep, where most of them come from deep. So a good chunk of talent coming back. And then in the portal, they bring in Cabe Kita, center from Utah, another kind of undersized center. But again, huge, strong, impossible to stop in the post. Very much like Traore. So they'll have a two-headed monster there at center. Maywat Mag, one of the best defenders coming in from the Big Ten Conference. A small forward from Rutgers comes in. Mihailo Boskovic, who played in, I believe, the Adriatic League, comes in. And I don't believe he's going to be a freshman. I think he's coming in as a junior, and he has yet to get NCAA clearance. Now, he's a power forward. Probably wasn't expected to have a huge role on this team, but it'd be nice to have another big body if possible. Then what's really exciting about this team is the recruiting class coming in. Igor Demine coming in, and he's a 5-star who was in the Real Madrid system. And I'll just give you a glimpse of some of his numbers. Not so much. See, where did I see where he played some significant? I guess it was. Okay, so he didn't play a ton last year in the Real Madrid system. However, when he did play, he stuffed the stat sheet. This is only an 8-game sample, but he played 28 minutes per game for Real Madrid's under-18 team. 28 minutes per game, 16 points per game, 42 from the field, only 19% from three. He's a better shooter than that. 73 from the free throw line, 6.8 rebounds per game. This is a guard. 4.5 assists per game, 2.1 steals, and 0.8 blocks. Playing for the best European under-18 team. Let's put it this way. Real Madrid has the best youth system in Europe. And they pay big dollars for players like Luka Doncic to come over and start playing with them when they're like 14 years old. So Demine is 6'8", a 6'8" point guard from Russia. And last scrimmage, I heard he had 11 assists for BYU. Now, I'm not sure who they played, but 11 assists in a scrimmage. Another player who's been really doing well for BYU in their scrimmages and practices is Kanon Catchings. He's a forward, number 41 in the composite. He might actually start for this team to give them some athleticism that really is kind of lacking. Otherwise, a lot of these teams are talented skill-wise, but not so much athletically. Also, Brady Kozlowski comes in, power forward, also a top 100 player, 4-star. And Elijah Crawford, a point guard, number 118 in the composite, another 4-star. So 1 5-star, 3 4-stars, and the returning talent plus the transfer portal guys. A lot of potential here, Josh.
I agree. I mean, I love this BYU team. I think, bringing in a new guy, Kevin Young from the Suns, I think he's done a phenomenal job in the transfer portal. I love the Maywat Mag pick from Rutgers, who's an absolute demon defensively. And, Dalen Hall, he's a great player. Richie Saunders, a great wing for them. And I think the big thing that's really sticks out to me is the recruiting class. Igor Demon, I was watching highlights of this man, and he can really do everything for this BYU team. And hearing now 11 assists in a scrimmage for them, it's crazy for a freshman. And also bringing in Kanon Catchings, decommitted from Purdue, came over to BYU, and I think he's a 3-level scorer. He can really shoot the ball well. I think this team can really do a lot of great things. And I just think, it's going to come down to, I think, the recruiting class for sure. And if they can really respond well to the new environment, Big 12 basketball. So, but I really like this BYU team, and I think they'll make some noise in the tournament.
Joey?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think when I was watching BYU last year, what I noticed was they were kind of made up of two components. On offense, it was their three-point shooting and their ball movement. And on defense, it was just their really tough interior defense and athleticism. And they lose a good portion of that with Jackson Robinson, Spencer Johnson, Waterman, and Khalifa, but they keep their shooting and their passing with Paul, Saunders, and Nell. They keep a lot of their defensive athleticism with Traore. and they also get more with Keita and Mag, and they bring in more shooting, and really they bring in shooting and defense with Deming, who looks like he can do absolutely anything. I was so impressed by his highlight reel, and Catchings, who looks like a phenomenal shooter. So really, with the way BYU played, they did a great job of addressing their needs and bring in guys that make sure they don't have to change the way they play.
Well, I think they will. I don't think they're going to be so 3-point happy this year. And I think some of these players, like Mag, he's not really a shooter. I think they will play a little differently. Even Igor, is not. I said he shoots better than 19%. He does, but even in other events, he didn't, necessarily. He's not yet a knockdown shooter, maybe like a 30% 3-point shooter. His ability is to play make and to do other things, just about everything else, but shooting. But there is shooting here. 3 shooters are definitely quality shooters in Hall, Saunders, and Nell. Okay. So there's definitely shooting here. I just don't think they lost Waterman, who could shoot, Johnson, who could shoot, Robinson. So last year they had 6 shooters. Now it looks like they're down to 3, maybe 4. But I think that's a good thing. I think the reason why BYU, if their threes weren't going down, they didn't have a shot in hell last year. That's why they could beat anybody, because if they were hot, you couldn't stop them. And if they weren't, it was easy to stop them. So I think it's going to be a move in the right direction to get away from being so 3-point happy.
Yeah, I think the only issue potentially, though, will be kind of balancing out the defense from the offense, because you're going to want Mag, Keita, and Traore in there. They're phenomenal defensively, but not so much offensively. And Deming, he did in 2022, 2023, he actually did shoot 41% from 3, so he can shoot, and he also provides a lot defensively. But I think the question is kind of balancing him. And Catchings, also very proven offensively, not sure how strong he is defensively. So I think that's going to be the real challenge. I think the shooting is there, but I think they're sacrificing a lot defensively. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of balance that out.
I think Mag gives them a defensive element that they just didn't have last year. They just didn't have a guy you could put on the best player and shut him down. Now, Mag didn't play a lot last year because he was hurt. And I believe that started the year before. So I think he missed the end of 2 years ago, then was in and out of the lineup last year. But yeah, if he's healthy, I think that's going to be something that they didn't have last year, which is a perimeter defensive stopper. So, all right, we'll move on to, now we're getting kind of toward the bubble area of the conference, getting to the middle. Next up is Texas Tech. And the big loss for them is Pop Isaacs moves on. The point guard moves on to Creighton. Warren Washington, the center, moved on to the pros. He was a productive player, good rim protector, but missed a good portion of the end of last season. In fact, I don't think he was ready for the NCAA tournament. And the team really missed his shot blocking last year. They do bring back Darian Williams, a transfer from Nevada, who did really, really well last year. I believe made all conference. Chance McMillan, a combo guard, was solid. Devin Cambridge of the Cambridge brothers, he too missed all of last, or actually not all of last season, but a good portion of last season due to injury. He's back. And sharpshooter Kerwin Walton also is back. But what's exciting about this team is the addition of JT Toppin, the freshman phenom from New Mexico that nobody saw coming. He was like a 3-star, but he played like a 5-star last year. And this guy is a defensive stopper and a great rebounder. Still has to, a lot of his points now come on rim runs and putbacks and stuff like that. So he does have to expand his offensive game, but he certainly is already on Pro Prospects draft boards. Elijah Hawkins comes over from Minnesota, a little point guard, highly productive, but not the most efficient offensive player. But in terms of assists, I think he averaged over 7 a game last year, didn't he? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 7.5, almost 8 assists per game. But even before this at Howard, he averaged 5.5 as a freshman, 6 as a sophomore, and then he goes to Minnesota and moves it up 1.5 more assists per game. He only averaged 9.5 points per game because I said he's not the most efficient, especially in terms of driving. He's an okay shooter, but and that's because he's only 6 foot at best. But he is still a really nice pickup. Federico comes over from Pittsburgh. He's a solid shot blocker. Kevin Overton comes over from Drake. He's a solid wing. And the only notable freshman is Christian Anderson Jr., and he is at number 22 in the composite, so a low 4-star. The thing, again, with this team, depth, we saw last year when Warren Washington went down, this team, did struggle at times. And now Federico, I think, is probably a downgrade, not an upgrade from Washington. And if he goes down, then you got to move Top in the center. Maybe that's the plan anyway. Maybe they start Top in the center, but he's more of a power forward, an athletic kind of guy that would definitely be out-muscled by some guys. But, you got to love the combination of forward of Toppin and Williams. They're both great rebounders. They're both good defenders. Like to see a little more shooting on this team, too. What are you thinking, Joey?
Yeah, I very much agree with you, Rich. I think Hawkins provides them great passing. I loved watching him play at Minnesota. Great with assists, great defensively, not much of a shooter, not much of a scorer. Just not much of a perimeter attack, although I do really like Chance McMillan. I'm really excited to see what he can do, given more of an opportunities. He's a great shot maker, can hit the 3, can take the ball off the bounce, pull up shots, get to the basket. So I'm really excited to see him in less of a limited role. But other than that, I think this team just lacks a lot of perimeter scoring, and I think that's going to be their downfall.
Josh?
Yeah, I think that's like the main thing for me. I love the addition of JT Toppin and Elijah Hawkins. I think Elijah Hawkins is a great player for Minnesota. Like you guys, 7.5 assists on a very subpar Big Ten team is
the word he wanted was
volume.
crap team.
Yeah, sure, yeah, crap team. But I think that was a great get for Texas Tech. JT Toppin has all conference aspirations, and I agree with you guys. I think the of shooting for this team. I think who's going to be the guy to really, shoot the ball for them and, get them, a couple threes a game, 35% shooter from downtown. That's the question for this team. I still think this team can do really well in the conference. I love the addition of Federico. If he really was great for Pittsburgh, big guy, rebounding, blocking shots. And that's going to be the name of the game if they can shoot in the Big 12.
Yeah, I agree. TCU loses just about everybody who did anything for them last year, including Emmanuel Miller, an all-conference player, moved on to the pros. The one exception to that is center Ernest Udo, a former really high recruit who is yet to really reach his potential, though he has played well in limited playing time. I would think this year is his year to shine. We shall see. In terms of the portal, they don't bring any, I don't know. They bring in some good players, led by Frankie Collins, point guard from Arizona State. I think Frankie has all-conference potential. But the rest of the guys are guys who did really, really well at lower levels. In Noah Reynolds, a combo guard from Green Bay. Teresian White, a small forward from Wilmington. UNC Wilmington, that is. Brendan Wenzel, a stretch forward from Wyoming. Bashan Alette, a combo guard from Old Dominion. And they also have a former high recruit, top 100 guy, R.J. Jones, didn't play a lot for Kansas State, coming over too. He's a shooting guard. But Jamie Dixon really did well in terms of recruiting. And I'm going to include one guy who redshirted last year, and that's Jace Posey. His father played in the NBA for a long time, James. And so it'd be interesting. Jace was a top 100 guy, 4-star, a wing, coming in at 91 last year's composites. But there's 4 other guys, including 2 top 100 guys. Small forward Micah Robinson joins this club, and David Punch, power forward, comes in at number 95. And there's 3 other guys that are lower down. They're 3-star guys that add to this really big freshman class of TCU's. So, Joey, what do you make of the Horned Frogs? Oh, who, by the way, shout out to TCU. I think TCU has the coolest looking court in college basketball.
Oh, absolutely. In the football jerseys with like the spikes.
That's awesome.
They're so cool. But yeah, this is, to me, TCU is a very boomer bust because everyone's gone. They're bringing in all new people, and not just all new people from pretty small schools. I mean, Reynolds from Green Bay, White from UNC Wilmington, Wyoming, Old Dominion. It's tricky. So I went to watch some film, and I kept in mind these are small schools. This very well may not translate, but I was just so impressed by what I saw from Reynolds and White and Collins. They can all score at all 3 levels. Collins and Reynolds are great passers, both averaging over 4 assists a game. Trezarian White grabbing a lot of rebounds. So they can, between the 3 of them, there's going to be a lot of stats that are going to be getting filled. Uday is a solid center, grabbing rebounds and blocking shots. Wenzel, solid role player forward, can hit threes, can grab some rebounds. So they do check the boxes. I admit it, I have them making the tournament, which I think is a risky pick because there's a really good chance that these guys don't translate. And, Reynolds and White are inefficient and averaging 10 a game. And it just completely implodes. But I'm going to trust the talent and hope that it translates.
Yeah, I think they're a bubble team. I think they're right on the edge, like Texas Tech, of being in the tournament. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I'm right with you guys. It's a hit or miss team for me. I think this team definitely brings in a decent amount of talent from different areas of different conferences. I think Noah Reynolds is a great get for TCU. Frankie Collins obviously is a great offensive point guard. But Ernest Uday Jr., I think he's a great center as well. It's just, I'm so confident saying that this team is going to be a tournament team. I definitely do think this is a bubble team. They'll be in the middle of the pack. And I think they'll be able to string some couple wins, but at the same time, I could see them losing some bad losses at the same time.
Yeah. I think there definitely could be growing pains, but Jamie Dixon's a great coach. I think, if one of those top 100 freshmen pop, you got 3 to pick from, and then you got 2 really, really highly productive players, at the mid-major level in Reynolds and White. If one of those guys pops, you hook them up with Udo and Collins, then, this team should be in the mix for an NCAA bid. All right, we'll move down to UCF, and UCF really went what's the saying? I forget, but basically Johnny Dawkins just took every player, it seemed like collected every player that's ever been in trouble in college basketball and put him on his roster. It's almost like he's selling his soul to the devil.
Might work out though.
It might, and it might implode, and there might be impact for years. but they really didn't lose any. Excuse me. They didn't really lose anybody of extreme, extreme value. I mean, Ibrahima Diallo was a big center, blocked some shots, grabbed some rebounds. Marcellus Avery was a nice versatile forward, but the strength of last year's club was really the backcourt of Jalen Sellers and Darius Johnson. Sellers being the shooting guard, Johnson being the point guard, and they were really, really good. Exceeded expectations in this conference. Sellers currently is injured. No word on when he might be coming back. I heard it was a back injury, that he's had back trouble before. Having experienced that myself, I know how that can be a pain in the neck, can flare up at all kinds of different times. And then on the portal, they took some swings. They really did. There's Keyshawn Hall, power forward, coming over from George Mason, productive player there. But there were rumors last year that he shut it down because he had already made a commitment to UCF and didn't want to play toward the end of the season because he didn't want to screw up his agreement with UCF. That's not a good thing to have hanging over your reputation. And there was Bernie Williams, a former really high recruit. I think he was like a top 40 guy, never quite achieved at Syracuse, and it really came to a head last year when he got kicked off the team. Jordan Ivy Curry, decent players, bounced around a little bit. Dallin Coleman, another, I think he was a top 60 recruit for Georgia Tech, never lived up to potential, shooting guard there. Dior Johnson, recruited by Pitt and never played a minute there because he got in all kinds of trouble. And he was kicked off the team, and he spent last year at Clarendon Junior College. He comes in. We have never seen him play, but he was like a top 50 guy. And then we have Mikey Williams, who transferred actually last year, but wasn't allowed to play because of his arrest for shooting at an occupied car on his property, but he was shooting at them as they were driving away and could have killed somebody. I don't know why I'm laughing. So yeah, Mikey managed to avoid a felony charge through various plea bargains, because if he did have a felony, I don't think he would have been allowed to play this year. So this is a guy who, when he was about 14 or 15 years old, got a big shoe contract. And it kind of went to his head. So he went from being like a top 10 prospect, falling all the way down to, in his final year in high school, down to number 52, because his level of play when it mattered for his high school didn't live up to expectations. And then he got in trouble before he ever played a game for Memphis. So apparently he's cleared to play. A potential, star for this team, which would give them an incredible backcourt if Sellers is healthy and Williams comes through and Darius Johnson plays like he did. They also have another top 60 recruit, and Mustafa Thiam, a center, a big center, at number 58 in the composite. So a lot of pieces, a lot of put together, and a lot of guys with some interesting pass. Oh, I forgot. There's JT Taylor, who lived with Mikey when Mikey was shooting at people. So JT also ran into some trouble at Memphis. He didn't get kicked off the team, but eventually he left before the season was over. So he was a former top 100 guy, I think. Yeah, small forward. So, yeah, we have a lot of guys with checkered pasts. Joey?
Yeah, I'm really not sure what Johnny Dawkins was thinking here. I mean, this just feels like a recipe for disaster. I don't even have words how a team could have this many incidents. And
none of them happened here.
Right, which makes it worse, because they see all that happen and they still say, yes, we want all of these guys. So I'm still astounded by that. But for me, I think the biggest red flag for this team is Jalen Sellers' injury, because he was so vital to that team last year. one of the two players brought back, averaging about 15 a game. And his injury currently has no timetable, so we don't know when this guy is coming back. Huge loss for the Knights in the meantime. However, Darius Johnson, very good point guard. I think Jordan Ivy Curry is a really good combo guard that will probably come off the bench. I think he'll be a really useful guy, especially if Sellers is out. Come in and fill that role. So they'll get their scoring from their guards. Keyshawn Hall, also good scorer, undersized big at 6'7", but he's able to get rebounds nevertheless. I just don't think this team has enough talent, simply put. I mean, they have solid guard play, a solid big, and other than that, there's no one here that really wows me.
This team did achieve last year, Josh. It surprised a lot of people by being more competitive than we thought. Because when we looked at the talent last year, we're like, oh my God. And you look at all the departed players, you're like, man, they're not losing much. But this team wasn't half bad last year. So what are you thinking?
I think this is I think it's a pretty, funny scenario that, the coach is, put into UCF. I think, with all yes, losing Jalen Sellers is tough. I think Darius Johnson's really going to have to step up for this team. But from looking at this transfer portal, I see a lot of, I think there's a lot of upside in this team for sure. You're bringing in a guy, I think Keyshawn Hall did really well at George Mason. I think Jordan Ivy Curry was a good combo guard, UTSA. And then there's the character issues, obviously, Dior Johnson, JJ Taylor, Mikey Williams. These are all very huge question marks for this team. If they can really, pull their things together, work on themselves, mature, as student athletes, I could see this team as a tournament team. But if I'm being realistic, I don't think this team's going to do much in the Big 12. I think it's going to take a lot of, working on character issues, a big transfer portal, having to mesh together. It's going to take a while for them to kind of adjust. So, they got to work on the little things, but, if they do so, that could be a big effort for the UCF for sure.
Here's what scares the hell out of me. You put all these guys that obviously haven't necessarily put academics first and haven't hesitated to screw up their own careers, and you put them all in the same room. Who shows them the light? Who's going to keep these guys? Because maybe half of them are going to be like, I'm going to go the straight and narrow. I'm not going to get in any trouble. But maybe the other half are going to, are still haven't broken their bad habits. And then before you know it, everybody's in trouble. I just would not have. I don't mind taking one reclamation project, maybe two, but
you got 3 or 4.
Four guys who were basically kicked off teams. And another guy who's apparently quit on his team, or supposedly, I should say. Yeah, man, that's all I'm going to say.
Johnny Dawkins just must be really confident in his team building skills.
Johnny Dawkins must be really freaking desperate, is what I'm saying. What I'm thinking.
Maybe he's got a plan. Who knows? Maybe things can work out.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. All right. So West Virginia was pretty bad last year, even though they had like 3 quality players. And Jesse Edwards, one of the best shot blocking centers in the country. Raquan Battle, who was a bucket. He didn't do much else, but he was a bucket. And then Kerr Kriisa, who can be a really good combo guard, could be a shooter with deep range and a great passer. All 3 of those guys are gone. The first 2 of the pros, and Kriisa went to Kentucky. They don't really bring back anybody of note. And so with, DeVries taking over, he brings his son with him. He was an outstanding player at Drake. This guy has great size, a small forward who really can knock it down. And he can pass too. I wouldn't call him a great defensive player, but he's a great offensive player. Javon Small, who came over from East Carolina last year at Oklahoma State, played really well, exceeded expectations. He also comes over, and I think he's a player of the year candidate for this team. Monty Hansberry, limited minutes last year at Illinois, but showed potential, former high recruit. Jaden Stone was a bucket at Detroit last year, not the most efficient guy, but he scored over 20 points per game for Detroit Mercy. He's a little banged up right now, but should be okay. You also have Eduardo Andre, a big center, takes over for Edwards. He's not close to Edwards, trust me. But he is a big body, will grab you some rebounds and block some shots. Sincere Harris, this guy lives, breathes, and sleeps defense. He will get into your uniform. And he redshirted last year from Illinois. So he is back. He's got to develop an offensive game, but he's great on-ball defender. And Toby Okani was a productive player, a forward at Illinois Chicago, also comes over. So, they got some talent here in the portal. But again, one of these teams that's rebuilding from scratch, new coach, doesn't seem to be enough unless, I don't know. Jaden Stone's not going to perform at the same. He's not going to put up 20 points per game like he did at Detroit Mercy. Hansberry's could take another leap, and Sincere Harris could take a leap. But right now, the two players you can count on being good are Small and DeVries. What do you think, Joey?
Yeah, I agree. I think offensively, DeVries and Small, you can count on them getting buckets. Stone shot 50% 2 years ago, only shot 31 last year, but I think now with DeVries and Small kind of carrying the ball handling offensive burden, he can become more of a spot-up shooter and, can really shine there. But other than that, I think Andre's a solid center, Hansberry's a solid forward. They're going to be solid defensively. They'll get some buckets, but I don't expect too much from them. It is a rebuilding year, which brings me to my point that really surprised me. I was looking through this roster knowing, it's a new coach with Darian DeVries. So I was really surprised to see that almost everyone they brought in is a senior. I was expecting some younger guys kind of start the rebuild.
Is DeVries a senior?
It could be DeVries' senior year.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I was really surprised, unless Darian DeVries is just coming in for
that
1 year
is unusual if you're rebuilding, because why bring in all these older guys if you're in rebuilding mode? Because it's pretty obvious in this conference. Maybe if they were playing the Atlantic 10 or the American, this team might be competitive, but or the Missouri Valley where the DeVries came from. But I just don't see this team having a winning record in conference and going to the tournament.
Yeah, I brought in 2 players who are younger than seniors and only 1 recruit. So not only do I agree they don't have the talent to make the tournament this year, I don't really know what they're going to do next year either.
Any thoughts, Josh?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. And, that was a good point by Joey, bringing up how all these transfers they're bringing, it's all seniors basically, a couple freshmen, sophomores, some juniors. But, if Coach DeVries wants, a new team in West Virginia, bringing in only 1 freshman and only 137th in the country, it's quite mind-boggling. And I understand, Tucker, wants to play for his dad. I think Javon Small is going to do great at West Virginia, but I just don't see this team, offensively pulling up against all these other bigger squads in the Big 12. But I do have some hope for the future for West Virginia. I think Coach DeVries is a great coach. I thought he was great at Drake, and I think he can do something in the near future, but not right now.
Maybe they just want to put the bad taste of last year out of his mouth. Maybe he wants to make sure his son goes off and is a possible draft pick, which he is. Yeah. So maybe he shouldn't be thinking that way about his son's career, but he probably can't help. But I don't know. Maybe they just want to be more competitive than last year to say, see, we're going in the right direction. That's the only thing I can make out of that because they're going to be starting from scratch again next year.
Yeah.
So we move on to Arizona State. And I wasn't quite sure where to put Arizona State. And I'm not so sure I am now. I think I have them in about the right spot. I think at best they're going to be like, right slap in the middle of the pack. I think that's the best thing they can hope for. They lose. First of all, Arizona State has really been struggling of late. Even when they make the tournament, they really haven't had a ton of success. And so I wonder if Bobby Hurley's job is somewhat in doubt, his future with Arizona State. He seems to have a high turnover rate, and we know Bobby Hurley has definitely got a temper. He's emotional, and I wonder if that wears on his players, because you see players coming in and out of that school like crazy. And that was even before portal madness.
Might be that Hurley blood.
Yeah. Yeah, but he seems to be even worse than Dan. Dan's Dan's emotional, but he seems to be able to control it. Bobby always looks like he's going to have a stroke at any second. But all right. So Frankie Collins, the aforementioned Frankie Collins, he moved on to TCU, and Jemiah Neal, the defensive ace, moved on to Creighton. They were the two significant losses from a not so good team. The key returners are Adam Miller, who's never quite lived up to his recruiting class, his 4-star rating. He is back. Has never been overly efficient. He scores, but doesn't do it in the most efficient way. Sean Phillips is a decent center. I don't know if he's a starting caliber. I guess he's a starting caliber center, but certainly not an all-conference type. And then the guys they bring in from the portal are more of these mid-major stars moving up a level, including B.J. Freeman, a wing from Milwaukee, Alston Mason, a point guard from Missouri State, Bashir Jihad, a forward from Ball State. And they also bring in a couple of former high recruits that didn't get a lot of playing time at their former schools, both top 100 guys. And that's power forward center Brandon Gardner from USC and Austin Nunez, who started at Arizona State, didn't get playing time, went to Ole Miss, didn't get playing time. Now he's back to Arizona State. So he's a point guard, and he was a former top 100 guy. The best thing you could say about Arizona State is their recruiting class, including Jaden Acquaintance, I think it is, and he's the number 9 player in the composite rankings. We shall see if he can live up to that stardom right away. Have some doubt about that. He's pretty young. They also have a top 25 5-star and Joshan Sanin, a shooting guard, and also a top 75 guy in Amir Ali, a small forward. So definitely the future is bright if they can keep those guys. I expect those guys, if it seems like if you want to keep a guy, you better play him. So this probably be a pretty young team. What are you thinking, Josh?
I've been on the edge with this team. Adam Miller is never really an efficient player. He could give you a couple, 10, 12 points a game.
I think he scored 16
but I do think,
last year.
Yeah, he scored 16 last. Okay, so he scored.
I think so.
Oh, he said he scored 12.
Did he? Okay, maybe I'm thinking of Collins.
And maybe, I think Collins scored. Yeah, so 12 points last year for Adam Miller on less than 40% in the field goal, 30% from 3. He's had his moments.
This is a guy who was known as a shooter, and he's shooting 30% from 3
at Illinois, exactly. So and then you get to the transfer portal. BJ Freeman, great wing at Milwaukee. I thought that was a great get for Bobby. Bashir Jihad was pretty good at Ball State. I do like, I think Brandon Gardner, who hasn't really had his, any sort of minutes. He redshirted at USC. But again, it's going to come down to the recruiting class. Jaden Quintance, I think, is a great get for Arizona State. He decommitted from Duke. They just had a scrimmage with Duke, and that was an abysmal showing from Arizona State. I think they lost by 50
Oh my
to
God.
Duke. Yeah, which was insane to see. Even though, Jaden had his moments, 11 points, 6 rebounds. I think, he's a good bully ball player, great handle for a big. And then you also got, Joe Sutton-Stanon. I think he's a good shot creator. He's a good guy to have off the bench and a little spark plug. They'll have, some players, but I just think overall the talent's not really there so much in a sense. I think it's more talent on the recruiting end, and it's gonna be hard to see two top 25 guys, freshmen, in a team Arizona State that doesn't really have like a big veteran presence. And your biggest guy is Adam Miller. Like it's not great for Arizona State. And I just don't see this team doing super well. I think they'll probably end up being in the middle of the pack. Maybe they'll surprise me and end up being a tournament team, but me personally, I do not see them doing more than that.
Joey, somebody in the AP poll gave this team a vote because they had like 2 points. So that probably means they put them at number 24 on their ballot, and they probably got 2 points for that. So somebody likes Arizona State out there. Is it you?
It's not, and I feel like whoever put that vote might need some reconsidering, and maybe someone else should be taking their spot. Yeah. Well, that was a curious decision. I think they're set up well for the future. I think I was really impressed by Quaintance, only 17 years old, monster defensively, grabbing rebounds, blocking shots. He could play in transition. He's a good passer. Sannon's a great shooter. So I think maybe we hold off on the fire Bobby Hurley. So, now that he's got 3 top 75 guys, see how these guys develop. But that's down the line. This year to me just feels like a placeholder year. They brought in Freeman to be the go-to scorer, Mason to be the point guard, the facilitator, Jihad at forward to knock down some threes. It seems like they just went out and grabbed some guys from smaller schools that can just kind of fill the roles until these top 75 guys develop further. So who knows? Maybe Freeman and Mason and Jihad will go off, and Quaintance and Sannon will already start shining as freshmen. But I think that where we have them is exactly where they should be.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on to Utah. They, for a while last year, they were a bubble team, and then they kind of fell off. Their big star was Brandon Carlson. Davion Smith, who was a transfer, was one of those transfers that was held up by the transfer rules. And then when they let everybody transfer, if he had gone to multiple schools, and then they let everybody loose. So he missed like 10 games. But the timing was perfect because their starting point guard, Rolly Royster, went down with an injury about that same time. And Davion Smith came on and played great. That's the good news. The bad news is he transferred to St. John's, and Brandon Carlson went on to the pros. So they lost their 2 best players, plus they lost Worcester, who went on to Nebraska, and Kiba Kita, who went on to BYU, was a really good backup center, actually highly efficient backup center. So they don't have a lot coming back. Gabe Madsen is a nice scoring, shooting wing for them. Lawson Lovering, former pretty high recruit. I think he was a 4-star. Gave him, pretty solid minutes at center, sharing time with Kita. Jake Whalen is a sophomore on this team. He's been impressing some people at camp, but really had a quiet year last year. In the portal, they don't bring many players in. They bring in a lot of players, some of which were former high recruits, including like Keanu Dawes, a forward from Rice, and Zach Keller, a power forward from Wake Forest. I'd say the 2 most impressive guys on this portal list is Mirio Little, who didn't get much playing time at Baylor last year, but was considered in his birth year. So that's usually how we group, because there is no such thing as, when they're playing pro ball, there's no such thing as a freshman or a junior, blah, blah, blah. So we grouped him by the birth. In his birth year, he was considered like a top 5 European player coming over from Belgium. Had some good moments playing at the pro level in, I believe, Belgium. But he didn't get a lot of opportunity at Baylor, didn't translate. He has the potential to be a star on this team. Also, we have Mongolian Mike, or Mike Shabajams. And he went to Dayton, then he went to San Francisco. He's never quite put it together. Mike is a very flashy player, a great passer, kind of like a bigger version of Kerr Kriisa. But here's the difference. He can't shoot as well as Kriisa, and he's not even as disciplined as Kriisa, and that's saying something. So, but Mike Shabajams has the upside, and was once considered a pretty high pro prospect, but has slid off because it just hasn't translated. His athleticism and skill haven't translated to the court. Also, he's like a 6'7", 6'8" point guard. And Utah only had one top 100 recruit. They actually only had one recruit that was a 4-star, no 5 stars, and that's Jackson Johnson, a forward at number 85 in the composite. So, Joey, this looks like a Midland team at best. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. I'll start with the bright spots because there aren't too many. Gabe Madsen looked good. They brought in Mason Madsen, so it's gonna be fun to see the Madsen. Yeah, the Madsen bros playing together. Both pretty good shooters. I think Lawson Lovering could really develop into a solid center, and I think Ezra Sarr is a solid power forward, able to grab some boards, block some shots, score a little bit. But that's about it. I mean no disrespect to Gabe Madsen when I say this, but if Gabe Madsen's your best scorer, you're probably just not going to be that good of a team. I think Jackson Johnson could be pretty good down the line, but he's still a freshman. I think they have a few okay role players. I saw Caleb Lohner grabbed 7 rebounds his freshman year at only listed as a shooting guard. So they have a few of these role players, Sheriff James, Keanu Dawes, Zach Keller, that, they can get some rebounds, some assists, but overall scoring wise, they just don't have what it takes.
And star power. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I was about to say, there's no number one guy that's, I'm going to go. There's no Brandon Carlson, Devion Smith, like those guys, were facilitating getting buckets for this Utah team, and I think it was a great guy, Miro Little, he's a freshman at Baylor, he's coming over now to Utah. And I think he'd be, in the future, can do really well for Utah. I think I'm going to mispronounce his name, but Mike Shara Jamitz?
Sarah Jams. Yeah.
Yeah, Shara Jams. Yeah, I think, he was at a time, up in NFL draft prospects for sure. And
NBA,
it's just like
NBA draft.
Yeah. And that was it. And
if his career keeps on going, he might want to look in the NFL.
Yeah, actually, yeah. That's true. But it is cool to see, the Mason brothers going at it with each other, but they're at best middle of the pack, but I think they will be in the lower end of the Big 12.
Yeah. And by the way, thus we call Mongolian Mike, who's the only Mongolian player I know of in college basketball. So that's not a nickname I made up. It's a nickname he had coming into Dayton. Yeah, because he's got a mouthful of a last name. All right, Oklahoma State, they were really pretty bad last year. And interestingly, you talked about Bobby Hurley's career being safe because of the recruiting class. Well, Mike Boynton had a great recruiting class last year. And I don't know which came first, them deciding to leave or Boynton getting fired and then they left. But yeah, he had a stellar recruiting class and they were all gone. And of course, the aforementioned Javon Small was not part of that recruiting class, but he was probably the best of the bunch last year that's leaving, going on to West Virginia. But Brandon Garrison, Eric Daly were studs. Keenan Williams, who we interviewed a while back, who's moved on to Abilene Christian. He too was a really key player, a glue guy for that team. So, but yeah, I mean, the key pieces were Daly and Garrison, and they took off, and Garrison to Kentucky, Daly to UCLA. Bryce Thompson, former high 4-star, 5-star guy, never has lived up to his potential. Had some injury issues last year. This is his last chance. I don't have a lot of confidence just based on his track record before. He is the most notable returner. Debo Davis comes over from Arkansas after having a dreadful year, like many Arkansas players did last year. Debo Davis, if he could develop a jump shot, he could be a potential NBA role player because he's a tremendous, tenacious defender who can play both the point and shooting guard. But the problem with shooting guard for him is he's not a great shooter. And then I don't know. You look at the rest of this transfer portal class. Nobody's exciting me. And then no top 300 recruits, though they do bring in a guy from Europe. I think it's Andrija Vukovic, who played some in, I believe, the Adriatic League or the Serbian League. But he wasn't, he's not really considered a high incoming freshman right now. Sorry, I'm running out of gas here because this team there's not much. I don't know what to say about it. Joey, do you see any light at the end of the tunnel? I mean, maybe there's something I missed.
I'm struggling to find anything good to say about this team, Rich. It's just they lost 5 of their 6 best players. Their only guy coming back that's starting has been disappointing. They bring in a bunch of role players that aren't necessarily bad, but in a competitive Big 12 conference, Devontae Davis and Marcellus Avery and 5'11" Khalil Brantley, they're not really going to move the needle. I think Abu Usmane is a really good center. He was really good before Xavier at North Texas. Came to Xavier.
He's good defensive presence, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, wasn't scoring 10 a game anymore, but still grabbing some rebounds, blocking some shots. But I like him. Other than that, I really am having a hard time finding nice things to say about Oklahoma State this year.
Josh, do you have anything to add to this compelling team?
I will say the crowd at the Oklahoma State games will be empty for sure. I can tell you that I'm not seeing any sort of, any bright spots for this team. Bryce Thompson's kind of been, obviously he hasn't shown what he should be, upside, big recruit at Kansas. They're bringing best guy in Devontae Davis from Arkansas. He's had a pretty subpar senior year at Arkansas, and I just can't. I'm trying to see if I can find any sort of bright spots for this team, but I really can't. I don't think this team's going to do very well. They don't even bring a top 300 recruit, and it's going to be a long season for the Cowboys.
Yeah. I think the next team we talk about, these two, they will be Colorado will be fighting Oklahoma State for the basement. Unfortunately, you don't get the top draft pick for finishing last.
The toilet bowl.
Yeah. And Colorado lost their top 6 players from last year. KJ Simpson, point guard, moves on to the pros. Tristan Da Silva, the do everything forward, moves on to the pros. Cody Williams, the prize recruit, moves on to the pros. Javon Hadley, defensive specialist, moves on to Louisville. Eddie Lampkin, the big man in the middle, moves on to Syracuse. Luke O'Brien, the stretch forward, moves on to Georgia Tech. There is a little hope, which I can't, a little more than Oklahoma State. So maybe last place is not the best spot for Colorado. Maybe they finish ahead of Oklahoma State. And I will say that because they have 4 non-seniors that have showed potential. Some of them are fairly high recruits, and Bangat Dak power forward, Asane Diop, a power forward. Javon Ruffin had a very nice freshman season. Then he got hurt last year, so his numbers tailed off. Julian Hammond was steady last year, steady reserve for this team. He's a junior. But then they didn't really bring in a lot to complement these young guys. So it almost seems like they're banking on these guys coming through in a big way. Or maybe they just couldn't control the defections, I mean, they did lose 3 guys to the pros, and then they were their top 3 guys. So there's nothing that could have been done about that. They bring in Andre Jakimovsky, shooting small forward from Washington State. He's been okay throughout his career. They bring in Elijah Malone, I believe is a JUCO, huge center, put up big numbers at the JUCO level, but does that mean it's going to translate? I mean, he's kind of built like Eddie Lampkin, even bigger, I believe, but is he going to be Eddie Lampkin? Who knows? Trevor Baskin, who's a D2 star, he's going to probably play the role of Tristan da Silva. But again, unlikely he's Tristan da Silva if he's been playing this long at the D2 level. And then all the recruits are somewhere in between 110 and 160 in the composite rankings to fill out the rest of the roster. So nobody that's expected to be a huge star, though one of them or maybe 2 of them might pop, especially Sebastian Ranick, who has some European experience. But he's a power forward, comes in at 121. So, Josh, I can tell by the look on your face, you are dying to talk about the Colorado Buffaloes. So let's hear it.
I've been waiting all night. Yeah, I mean, I guess I do agree on the aspect with you, Rich. They got still, people from the team before, some, younger guys, I think Bangot Dak, freshman, didn't get a lot of playing time, but, he's going to probably be put into a big role now, probably starting for this team. They've got, Javon Ruffin, who had a solid sophomore year, only averaging, 10 minutes a game. But this is like, you're losing all your guys here, KJ Simpson, went to the pros, Da Silva, Cody, that's 3 NBA guys. So, there's definitely some hope for this Colorado team. Players do see that, okay, this team, they've had NBA aspirations, had just had 3 guys into the NBA. And I guess you can look at that on the upside. On the other side of the things, I don't see anything that's offensively that's super overpowering, and no star power. Don't really see any shooters on this team. It's gonna be a rough time to be a Buffs fan in basketball for sure. So it's gonna be OSU and Colorado, I believe, in the toilet bowl this year.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I hear you. What do you think of Joey? Any hope?
Well, I think there's hope if the team we're comparing them against is Oklahoma State and not the rest of the Big 12.
Right.
I think.
Yeah, sure.
I think that, what they do have that Oklahoma State doesn't have is Colorado's team is comprised of players that didn't play a lot for them last year, guys that balled out in D2, and, recruits. So I think the bright way to look about that is that we don't know that they're bad. They might pop off. Like Elijah Malone averaged 2.5 blocks at Grace College. I don't know what Grace College is, and I'm not certain that'll contribute, but there's at least promise. Whereas Oklahoma State, we're pretty confident that these guys won't succeed. Now, I think that some of the guys, I think Ruffin, getting minutes now could, he could contribute a little bit. Same goes for Hammond. I think that it is possible for Malone and Baskin. Obviously, they're not going to fill Lampkin and Da Silva's role, but they could contribute. They could, Malone may be able to put over 10 a game, grab some rebounds. Who knows? Maybe one of these 3 recruits, Crawford, Ranick, Casares. I mean, for a bottom of the Big 12 team, 3 recruits in the top 200. That's not horrible. One of these guys could be good. The opportunities will certainly be there. So they're not going to be successful this year, but there is some hope.
Yeah, yeah, and I think they should be actually ahead of Oklahoma State. Now that I get to talk about it and think about it, but other than that, but the nice thing is unlike Oklahoma State, at least all their 4 returners and their freshmen all could return next year. They could have 7 really good players coming back next year. So yeah, who knows? Or at least 7 solid players coming back next year. All right, so we'll move on to our fearless predictions. We're all picking Kansas to win the championship. I don't know. In terms of the at-large bids, we vary from 7 from Joey, 8 for Josh, and 8 for me. And I'm just trying to see what the differences are. Joey has TCU in there. Josh has Texas Tech in there. And I have Texas Tech or TCU. And right now I have them right next to each other. So take your pick. In the teams that we have the consensus on are Houston, Baylor, Iowa State, BYU, Arizona, Kansas State, Cincinnati. And that's one team Joey didn't have included, but Josh and I did. So we all went with Hunter Dickinson for Player of the Year. I think that's kind of I don't know if he won it in reality, but I think that's the smart money. Defensive Player of the Year, though, we all went with somebody different. Taman Lipsey for Joey, Dejon Harris for Josh, and me with JT Toppin from Texas Tech. Newcomer of the Year, Joey goes with Jeremy Roach from Baylor. We all picked Baylor guys, though, interestingly.
Yeah.
Josh goes VJ Edgecombe from Baylor, and I went from Norchad Omier from Baylor, and I wrote edging out Freshman of the Year, VJ Edgecombe. So any final thoughts on these picks? Joey, I'm kind of surprised you left Cincinnati off, but we already beat that one to death, I think. TCU, Texas Tech is pretty much a toss-up, but any of you guys want to make an argument for your Defensive Player of the Year candidate or your Newcomer of the Year candidate, since we all had different ones?
Well, I think Defensive Player of the Year, Taman Lipsey averaged 2.7 steals a game, and we saw Iowa State's defense was just stifling. So that felt like the choice for me. What I did want to add, though, was I saw Jamal Shed won it, and my mind immediately went, okay, it's got to be one of those Houston bigs. And I was trying to debate between Francis and Roberts and Tugler, and I just couldn't decide because they all play so much. So I just went back to Lipsey. As for my newcomer, Jeremy Roach, I admit it's a bit of the underdog pick. You all have Edgecombe and Omier respectively, but I really think that, now in Baylor with the keys to the offense, Roach is really going to blossom as a scorer. And I love his game so much at Duke. Great ball handler, shooter, passer. I'm just really excited to see what he can do, and hopefully my predictions are right.
Josh?
Yeah, and for me, when I think of defensive player, I went with DeJuan Harris. I think it's a little bit of a stretch for me in that pick. I do think Kansas, defensive schemes, he does pick up either the 1 or 2 option and does a pretty good job in defending that person, averaging 1.5 steals. I think he's a great defensive rebounding guard. I think he can really, close it out really well as a guard. And I think he could do really well for Kansas this year in his final year. And for my newcomer of the year, I'm the ceiling's so high for this man, VJ Edgecombe. I believe this man will be a top 3 pick in this upcoming draft, which is a hot take for a lot of people. But I think this man's got the whole package. He's a freak of an athlete, 3-level scorer. It's like you can't defend this man in transition. This dude is an unbelievable player. And from what I've seen, I think this Baylor team could do really well with all 3 of our newcomers of the year.
Yeah, I agree. For Defense of the Year, Player of the Year, I didn't pick, I thought about Lipsey, but I also thought about newcomer Josh Jefferson, thought that he might cut into his Defensive Player of the Year votes. I also thought about Onyensu because he's such a tremendous shot blocker. Again, though, Bayfall is on that team. Is there a chance that Bayfall could actually play better and displace him? Or maybe, they end up playing like 20 minutes a game each or something like that. So that scared me away there. Toppin was just tremendous last year for New Mexico. Now, this is a jump up in level of play. But I'm just thinking that he too, being young, his level of play can kind of grow along with his jump up. In fact, his teammate, Darian Williams, transitioned from Nevada to Texas Tech with no problem. So, yeah, I don't think Toppin's going to have a problem. In terms of Amir, like I said, Edgecombe was a tough choice between those two. And Amir is just such a stat stuffing machine. So if he does anything close to what he did at Miami, the freshman's going to have one hell of a year to beat out Amir for newcomer of the year. But I think he's got freshman of the year. So we're going to roll the interview that I did with Brandon Garrison right after their season opener. So we'll roll that interview and hear what Brandon has to say about the Kentucky Wildcats. Today's special guest is Kentucky sophomore center Brandon Garrison, a former McDonald's All-American. Brandon played at Oklahoma State as a freshman and averaged 22.6 minutes, 7.5 points, 5.3 rebounds, 1.5 assists, and 1.5 blocks per game, which was fifth in the Big 12. And he did all that while shooting 57% from the floor. Brandon, I'm a little out of breath. Welcome to the show. How you doing today? Had some trouble getting the questions up, but I figured it out. So
yeah, I'm doing good today.
Good. I have had the pleasure to talk with at least three guys you've played with before, including Keon Williams, Kobe Brea, and Amari Williams. Out of that trio, who is the most talkative?
Probably Keon for sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think maybe my longest ever interview with Kobe. It was like late at night, and it was like 8 o'clock, for an interview. Usually we do, midday. Kobe and I talked like 8 o'clock at night, and I think we almost talked an hour. It was crazy.
Dang, that's crazy.
So out of that trio, has any of them gone horseback riding with you?
Nah, none of them have.
All right. Who has? Any teammates go with you?
Nah, not from college. Just like my high school former teammates have. So yeah.
So how'd you get into horseback riding?
So my stepdad actually he did rodeos and stuff. He did bulldog, if you know what that is. So he has 4 horses.
Uh-huh.
And since I was in like middle school, I just go ride them and stuff, and ever since I've been doing that.
So, and this is a serious question. At 6'10" and 250 pounds, can you ride any horse, or does it need to be a special horse?
Well, like any like normal size, full grown horse is like pretty fine for me. Just like not like a year old or something like that.
All right. I think we should have like special horse racing for guys like you and Zach Eady and big guy horse racing.
No, for sure.
All right. So before we talk about this season, which I'm going to focus on, I need to ask you something we recently discussed on the show, which was the timeline of events at Oklahoma State. And we were just kind of confused about what happened there. Specifically, did you, Keon, Eric, and Eric Daly, that is, Justin McBride, all decide to leave before Coach Boynton was dismissed, or was it the other way around?
So we all actually was still like we wasn't in the transfer portal like before all this happened. We all got in it like right after the news hit. So yeah.
So he was dismissed, and then you hit the portal.
Yes, sir. So like when the season was over and stuff like that, we was all still at Oklahoma State just working out and stuff like that. But then like as soon as it hit, we all decided just to open up our options, talk to the new coach and stuff like that.
Okay. It kind of caught me by surprise because knowing that you and Eric were really highly regarded freshmen, and you had other talented young guys on the team, including Justin, Keon, and I was just surprised that they let Coach go because it didn't seem like he got a fair shake at Oklahoma State with everything that went down there from the start. But that's beside the point. You can comment on that if you want, and if you don't want, you don't have to.
Yeah, just like you said, he was a very good dude, and I'll say like we had a young team last year, but everything happens for a reason. I feel like I'm at a better spot now, doing bigger and better things. So yeah.
Right. So what specifically attracted you to Kentucky? I mean, I can guess, but I mean, Kentucky is one of the premier, if not the premier program in the country. So, but anything specific drew you to Kentucky other than that?
Uh, I'll say just like me and Coach Pope actually talked a little bit while he was at BYU. So I'll say that started there. And then like once he got here, I was one of the first players like that he talked to, was recruiting to bring on to the team. And I feel like after that we just started like talking, and I talked to the other staff and created that bond, and it just felt like home after I talked to my family, agents and stuff like that.
Right. I'd like to talk about the roster construction, that you guys have, because when I look at it, I don't know about you, but when I play 2K, I do it with trades, and I kind of like to build my team just in a certain way. And like if I was building a team, this is kind of the way I'd build them on 2K. And so for people who don't know, you have Jackson Robinson, Otega Owa, Amari Williams, Andrew Carr, Lamont Butler, yourself, Kobe Brea, Kirk Risa, Colin Chandler, Ansley Alomar. Am I saying that right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
So the thing that I find beautiful is it just kind of seems like it's going to fit just by looking at it. And the other thing is your second team. If you just took the second team, you guys would be competitive in like so many, I don't know about the SEC because I think the SEC is the strongest conference out there this year. But like if you were in a different conference, the second team would probably be the best team in that conference. So I guess, as you look at the roster, could you run down and comment about, some of the guys and what they bring to the table?
Yeah, like you said, our first group that you named off first, I feel like that's a strong group right there, starting us off the game strong. And then I feel like we have depth coming off the bench. It's like another starting five coming in, and most teams can't compete with that because they mainly just have like their front court guys in like the whole game. But I feel like we got more depth and stuff out there to show like that.
Right. Does the game flow when you're in there versus Amari being in there? Does the game flow differently, or are you guys trying to accomplish the same thing? Because I think what I saw in the first game is you went down in the post more, and Amari kind of played more up top as a facilitator. Now you had 5 assists in the game, so I'm not saying you didn't facilitate, but I'm just saying you seem to bring a low post element more to the game, a traditional low post player type thing, where Amari was more kind of like getting his points off drives and stuff like that.
Yeah, like you said, I don't feel like when I'm in versus when he in, like we're trying to do like the opposite or different things. It's just like I feel like we have different games, like you said. Like he's probably better at me than one thing, and I'm probably better at him at the another. So I just feel like we just bring different stuff to the table, and yeah.
Okay. When we talked on the show before the season, again, I I stated that I love your roster construction, but one thing we all had a concern about is, and this goes with any team, when you're starting from scratch, and you guys are starting completely from scratch,
Yeah.
that the team might need some time to gel. In that first game, though, against Wright State the other night, the team looked like a well-oiled machine. Like you guys have been playing together for, a couple of years. 30 assists on 39 baskets. That's incredible. So how would you describe, like, how did you come out and play so darn well?
Yeah, like you said, just with us having like veterans and not such like a young team, and like it's all mixed in with like veterans and like I wouldn't say like rookies, but like sophomores, juniors, and stuff. And I feel like everybody has played in college and knows how it works and stuff. So I just knew coming in like we wouldn't be one of those teams that got to figure it out. It's just like when we first stepped on the court, I feel like we all just connected together.
Okay, and how would you describe Coach's offense, compared to other offenses you played into? Because, I mean, last year at BYU, they were very, very much reliant on the three. But you guys against Wright State weren't so reliant on the three. You kind of took them when you had them, and if you didn't, you did something else. So how would you describe the offensive approach this year? Because I think everyone's thinking you guys are going to be shooting threes all the time. I don't see that happening personally.
Yeah, like you said, everybody loves Coach Post's offense. I actually played against him twice last year, so like you said, they was getting up a lot of threes, and it's just a fast-paced offense and a whole bunch of moving. It's just like he really doesn't like the ball sticking in one spot, cutters cutting hard and stuff like that. So I feel like people like just expects us to shoot a lot of threes, but I feel like we have different pieces like that can get to the rim, knock down a three. We can just show different looks.
Right. And not much ISO ball either.
Yeah, not for sure. Yeah, he gets on us about that. He don't really like that. I don't believe that's team basketball, so I wouldn't blame him for it.
No, I agree. I totally agree with Coach. It's very much kind of a European approach to basketball, which is totally team basketball, working for the right shot. Love it. I love it. It's fun to watch. You're the youngest guy in the rotation of the 10 guys I mentioned. I believe, is Colin Chandler younger than you?
I'm at like age wise.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, he's older than me.
Yeah, I thought so. So you're the youngest. So what are the coaches asking you to improve upon?
Just make sure I'm doing my job all the time, at 100%, setting good screens, doing what I do, rim run, running the offense right, and ball screen D, and just things like that. Just doing my job overall, not doing too much.
Right. And he seems to be, and he has this luxury with having a second team that's really a bunch of starters, such as yourself. He seems to be plugging and playing you guys, at least against Wright State, plugging and playing, Amari plays a little, then you play a little. Is it really important for him to make sure you guys are at your 100% energy level and to keep you fresh all the time?
Yeah. Just because his offense is very fast paced, and like I don't feel like nobody in the country like has the kind of offense he have that'll like make you. I wouldn't say like just so tired, but like make you get that extra breath. So I feel like our depth really helps us like push the pace and kill our opponents on that part, like you said.
Right, wear them down.
Yeah.
I know you shouldn't be looking ahead. You got Bucknell coming up on Friday, and I know you shouldn't be looking ahead to Duke, but I got to ask, how excited is the team about that matchup?
Yeah, like you said, we're just taking one game at a time, and I feel like every game is going to be a big game and exciting. So I wouldn't say I'm like just looking past Bucknell to Duke, but I'm taking every game like we're playing Duke or such thing.
Okay. I know you're looking ahead to that game. Come on. So, all right, I'm going to ask you a more general question about preparing for a game like Duke or Bucknell. When you have a few days in between games, which generally you play one, midweek and then one on the weekend. When you have a few days, do you specifically spend a lot of time focusing on the opponent, or do you focus on doing what you do and just getting better at it?
Yeah, like you said, just first things first, just make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, make sure my team's good, and then always just worried about who you play. Make sure you're watching film on them, scouting them well, just knowing like their weaknesses and strengths and like the best players and players you're guarding and stuff like that.
Long before you were born, UCLA won 10 straight national championships. And Bill Walton always claimed, God bless Bill Walton, by the way, always claimed that John Wooden, the head coach, never, ever looked at the opposing opponent, always focused on just doing what we do, and we don't care what they do, because if we do everything right, we're going to win. It's just an interesting approach, and I don't expect you to comment on it, but I just always wondered, are any coaches taking that approach now? But I know there's a lot of film watching, a lot of studying, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I have no comment on that.
Right. All right. But it's an interesting idea, though, isn't it?
No, yeah, for sure.
Of course, I will say this. UCLA had the advantage of, at the time, usually having, they always had a Bill Walton or a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or somebody that nobody really could match up with. So for you and the rest of your teammates, has it sunk in yet, really sunk in, that you are a Kentucky Wildcat? Think about that. I mean, if you think about it, there's a responsibility that comes with that. Has it sunk in?
I don't think like it has all the way, but it's just crazy. Like waking up every day, like a dream come true. Like I'm really playing for Kentucky. I would have never thought. It's just like you said. It's just a lot of responsibilities that come with it, but just grateful and thank God for it for sure.
So, what are you enjoying most about being at Kentucky?
Just like the coach experience, like just developing. I feel like my game's really expanding just because like Coach Pope played in the league. Most of the guys on the staff played in the league or been around dudes played in the league, or even been head coaches, that's assistant coaches. Just like the fans out here, the environment, everybody's friendly, lovely. And yeah.
All right. One last question. The team, as I said, I think the SEC is not only the toughest conference, but it has depth. I mean, you go all the way to the bottom, and it's still going to be there's no easy games in this conference this year.
No,
so, what how are you approaching the season, and what are your goals? I mean, is national championship is something come in your mind?
No, yeah, for sure. We're at Kentucky. It's like it's only like hang banner behavior here. That's all coaches been preaching. The fans preaching to us. So that's another responsibility. So I'll say like go just hang number 9. Just get my team wins and do my part so we all can eat.
Right. All right. It was great talking to you, Brandon, and I hope you come back and visit us again in the future. And I wish you and the team the best this season. And honestly, I think you guys have a chance to do it all. I really love how the team was built, and I really love the way you guys looked the other night.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Nice talking to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So it was great to have Brandon step in for us and do that interview. Very happy to have him. And I think he's going to fit in nicely with that Kentucky squad, and ultimately could turn out to be one of the top centers in the SEC as this game develops. All right, gentlemen, any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Hopefully, by the time y'all are hearing this, Ohio State has destroyed Texas.
All right.
I'm rooting for that too. So,
wow. I don't know if I'm rooting for anybody, but don't tell my Ohio State connections that. Yes, I'm rooting for Ohio State. Definitely rooting for Ohio State. All right. As always, I want to thank all of our listeners. If you ever miss an episode, you can get caught up at hoopsprospects.com. We will be back soon to do our college fearless forecast. Yeah, I know we're running behind, but we're going to be making our Final Four picks, our Player of the Year pick, all the national picks. We've done it by conference, but now we're going to have a short show kind of wrapping everything up, talking about who we think is going to win the national championship as we start to get into the season. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.